Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good midnight, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining. Today we are having our webinar series, the webinar number 5 on network state new countries. And the topic today is a very hot and very tough topic, the relations between the network states and the nation states. A big dichotomy, a big clash of the future and the present. So I'm very happy that these webinar series are getting uh, momentum and people get interested, and we have distinguished speakers, experts in the field, in the ecosystem industry, who join and to share their valuable experiences. Today my guests my guests are Jim, who has been researching the network states for many years already, and he has been very active in several network state platforms, and especially one of the major strengths of Jim, in my opinion, is his historical view of politics, geopolitics, and network states in general. I mean, what this new thing is having or is dealing with history. Our next speaker is Joshua, the founder of Loki. Joshua is has been active in the field as well, and Joshua has been championing for a coordinated action, actually, a coordinated group of network states vis-a-vis the nation states and vis-a-vis the current international establishment. And he also um, is working on practical level on kind of bringing the network state agenda onto the international relations table. And the next speaker is Shiwen, who has been active in the field as well, and Shiwen is also researching the Asian politics and the network state vis-a-vis Asia. I mean, what we have, I mean, in this sector in Asia, and that's why we are going to have a very interesting discussion today. From my part, I during my interviews, my articles, when I wrote articles, my um, publications, I have always been trying to call for a coordinated action, because I think that when we are talking about politics, and this is politics because you are coming from the future and you are shaking the very foundations of the current establishment, then that is the highest politics, highest level of politics. So when we are talking about politics, I think we are going to have, or we must have, a mature, coordinated action with mature people with political smell, who understand what's going on. Because when you build, I mean, this type of, or you try to build this type of establishments, you are dealing with very powerful centers, and those powerful centers are watching. They are watching us, and they need to know that they are mature people who understand what politics is, and what these political dimensions and dynamics are nowadays. And why I'm saying this, that these people want to see that they are mature, because they also want to understand what it is, and they, maybe some of them also want to do this, maybe some of them also want to change, I mean, what it is now. So that's why, I mean, this is a must, to have mature political discussion. And one of the key things is, of course, the relations with the nation states. I mean, because when we talk about the network states and we think that the network states are just online communities, then again, it seems that you are a subordinate of a nation state. but we don't want to have that, because when we talk about the network state, we kind of trying to bring the future to the present, that this is the new establishment that will function, that will work. So it means that the network states shouldn't be subordinated, and the network states will at least on equal level speak to the nation states. And one of the challenges is, of course, political core team to do that, because many people run many network state stuff. I mean, projects, events, conferences, and one of the key pitfalls is that there is no political agenda, which I feel is a big setback. We definitely need to bring this political agenda onto the table, because if you don't do politics, politics is going to do something to you. You need to be into politics if you want to build something big, if you want to build something new and something innovative. You need to be in politics, because we are talking about society. And moreover, we are talking about global society, and we are talking about the youngsters, young people who want to change the establishment, because it is obvious that the current establishment is in deep crisis, and we are going to see a big transition. Unfortunately, now we are seeing it with wars and clash of civilizations, or as one of my Indian friends told me, civilizations never clash. Civilizations clash with non-civilizations. That was a very interesting comment. But anyway, we are seeing these crazy global wars, I mean, hybrid wars and everything. But I truly hope that these young people who truly want to challenge the current establishment, they are the ones who are going to shape the foundations of the new world. That's why I say that we are coming from the future. And my idea has always been this core political team, to talk with the nation states, and to talk with some nation states, powerful centers, United Nation. It's not that like you just put your thumb at these people, right? That we don't care about you. You are from the current establishment. We are very new people. We don't want to deal with you. No, things like that never work in politics. It's like, I mean, it's like, for example, let's say China and the USA. They don't like each other. They are in competition, and they say, "So I don't care what you do or whatever. So I will do my thing." Things like that never work. I mean, you need to definitely deal with, I mean, even your opponents, though I wouldn't call the networks nation states our opponents, because there are a lot of people, even in the decision-making bodies in the nation states, who will also like those ideas, and who also like those ideas. I can confirm, because I also got a chance to talk with some, and not only in Armenia but outside of it. So basically, yeah, I mean, this is one thing. This core political team to talk with these people, like decision makers, governments. And the second thing is, of course, this platform that will be functioning with its media resources. This is very important, that every day you do press releases, you say what is happening within the network state world, so that the nation state people, the foreign ministries or the special services or whoever else, they analyze what you do, so they understand, I mean, who they are dealing with. So they don't relate, I mean, they don't consider you like a cult, like some New York Times articles published or whatever, right? This type of crazy, because there needs to be a clear message to these people, so that they can never, I mean, publish these type of articles anymore, or even they do, they will be answered and very quickly by more sober articles and publications. So this is my idea, like the political core team, and daily work. Like, I mean, every day you publish what you do, what events you have, like it's in a county. Like, you go to State Department website, you have press releases, I meet this guy met this guy, consider this guy made this announcement. Oh, this is a good thing, this is a bad thing. I mean, the network state should also have this. I mean, it's not like that we are working the way the nation states work. No, this is the way the society has been functioning for millennia, for millennia. So we don't need to invent a new bicycle here. So this is from me, and one of the best advice I can give to my colleagues, peers, is that never say that we are non-political. When you say this, I personally don't accept you seriously. When you say that I am non-political, if you build something big, you cannot be non-political. So thanks a lot again. And Jim, stage is yours. Please share your ideas, findings, and every speaker, I forgot to say, has 10 minutes to share their views. Thank you.
I'll try to time myself. Thank you so much, Vaha. Very inspirational beginning to the conversation. And I'd love to see if this could be a conversation back and forth as well later on. I'll try to build on some of Vahan's excellent, interesting points as well. And if you don't mind, I may throw in a few contrarian views in terms of the discussions we have. Again, just for the sake of discussion, this is an open discussion. We're fairly early in the movement, in the discussions, in the developments of this entire ecosystem, and it's a pleasure really to really collaborate and speak and have these open discussions. I don't call myself an expert in anything. It's just like everything is just self-learned, and because the space is so new, we're all kind of co-learning, co-collaborating, and co-building together. And I want to kind of try to structure my thoughts into 3 C's: construction, community, and collaboration. So first, construction. I was just trying to find a word that begins with C. Initially, what was in mind was build. Build. Good friend Angelo, he's the founder of Build Network, is one of the really amazing startup societies that's out there. He's really engaged in different network communities. So I wanted to kind of borrow his the name of his community, Build. So it's almost like when you're starting a company, right? When you're starting a company, the first thing you want to do is to build for product market fit, right? Build for product market fit. Start small, start somewhere, try to pivot, try to ask questions, try to speak with your prospective customers. So so right now, we're seeing are potentially some initial projects that are out there. Arguably, I wouldn't call, with due respect to a lot of these projects and really amazing founders, teams and communities, but I wouldn't call any of these network states as of yet. It's almost like we're at the Bitcoin, to use a crypto analogy, with the crypto movement, we're kind of at the one of those like early internet board phases of the crypto movement, where it hasn't become mainstream. It's probably far from mainstream yet. The one thing that I think that this movement could go forward is to really build, have these proofs, concepts, have initial communities, initial societies, conversation. What Vahan was saying, conversations, right? To have these conversations going. And want to really thank Vahan for organizing these. These are amazing stuff. It helps to really energize the communities and like-minded folks who want this. So number one, construction, build for the movement to build as much as possible, have a lot of meetups, have a lot of just initial projects that are there to just build, to have show of concept, MVP, right? To use a industry analogy, building these MVPs and proofs of concepts so that people can see and visualize what's going on. I used to in some of these discussions, I used to joke that if a rickshaw driver in Cambodia would get excited about network societies, then that's something big. Just like with crypto movement, right? Nowadays, because it's become mainstream, any cab driver in New York or Kathmandu could be excited about Bitcoin or Ethereum, right? That's when you can know you made it big. So So keep on building so that people can see what's happening. Balaji, interestingly, he makes a very good approach in terms of top-down. He does a top-down approach where he reaches out to a lot of billionaires, tech entrepreneurs who have high profiles, and have them become influencers and take the lead on this. That's great. That's a great approach. Another approach is more bottoms-up approach. In Vahram, I was just speaking with one of your co-speakers from one of the previous webinars, Joyce, and she recently published a book about her time spent in Mazra, which is a local community in Honduras, a startup community, and that is more of a bottoms-up approach where you energize and engage common folk, and you try to solve a problem or a series of problems for them. Just like when you're building a startup, right? You find the product that market fits, and you try to solve a problem for people. So in terms of being the glue, what makes a potential, you can call it a network state, you call it a network society, different from the online community, right? Why are you talking about online community, right? Online community, you log in, log out, great, that's fine, it's a nice to have. But a network society starts to potentially build infrastructure and solve fundamental problems that people have a need to. So it goes from a nice to have to a must have, right? Whether you're talking about healthcare, social security, whether you're talking about certain safety nets. I have these discussions with a group that's related to Plomia, and we have these bi-weekly calls where we're talking about, okay, can we scope out some potential safety nets that could be more global, digitalized, and decentralized, and that could be done better. So do something better than the existing institutions do, just like startups do, and that will get us, very far ahead. So number one is construction, build for better, build for product market fit, build must-have stuff that could also engage a bottoms-up approach for the common folk that could get people excited and allow people to see an MVP of what could be an alternative future, a parallel society. Number two is community. We talk about community a lot, and thinking about what you're doing right now is community, right? Having excitement. Community breeds culture. We talk about nation states, right? Nation states, a big part of what builds and holds nation states together is culture. It's the collective stories, the collective memories of what makes people, Americans, Russians, Chinese, Indians, right? Dutch, British, right? It's the common set of knowledge, culture, stories, narratives, folklores, histories. And to some extent, network states or network societies or parallel societies, whatever you call them, need this as well to some extent. It could be different. I mean, it could be parallel. We're not talking about building national folklores, but having these types of community bonds, right? Anywhere from what Vahram is organizing right now to what Balaji is organizing with the Network State Conference to what a lot of these other projects are doing, whether online or in person. There are a lot of projects that are trying to do like online, offline, where people can meet up physically as well, and those are great things. Papa cities, Zuzalu, with what Vitaly is doing with Rosalu, what Nicholas is doing with Vitalia, and what they're doing with Prospera. These are all great things. There's not one thing, but just a Cameron explosion of different things that are happening, decentralized, locally, online, that are happening, community that helps with engagement. So again, it becomes not just like a online club where it's almost like a Miley Cyrus appreciation club, right? We move from there to something more. And by the way, just a segue. And there's a day when the network state movement can become as big as the Miley Cyrus or Justin Bieber, Kim Kardashian appreciation club, fan club globally. We probably are very close at that point, right? In terms of the billions, right? We want to get to the billions, right? That one step at a time, and having these community engagements one step at a time will help us get there. Getting the energy, getting the interaction, the relationship, the people-to-people relationships that are the foundations of any society. And then finally, I want to throw in the word collaboration. So there's a lot of talk and about, oh, network states are coming up, and vis-a-vis nation states. And arguably, you don't want to antagonize nation states, which are arguably the existing power structure of the day that hold much violence, right? Nation states have the ability to control violence and enable things through the enacting the violence. And we're all law-abiding people. We abide by rules. We do good things. Our ultimate goal is for the betterment of society for the future generations. And we can talk a lot more about collaboration. There are 190 nation states in the world. Not everyone is a couple hundred million strong nation state. There are 190 nation states in the world, and I think most of the nation states are quite small, and you have these like micro states.
Sorry for interrupting. Please sum up, because we are.
Sure. They have these just in 1 minute. You have these micro states, right? And there's a lot of room for potential collaborations. The people in the network society, startup society realm who can provide know-how, technical know-how, economic incentives that could collaborate with some of these smaller nation states and enable a win-win situation where the nation states could enable recognition, whereas the network societies could provide technology, economics, even people. I think Palau is a great example where they're inviting people to come over to Palau as a small micro state that could attract talent, technical know-how, and build something hand peacefully together. So that's a win-win for everybody in the entire world and on Earth as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Jim, for your take and for very valuable comments and presentation. Thanks a lot. Joshua, stage is yours, please.
Thank you, and so much for including me on here. Jim has done a little bit of my work, so thank you for bringing up a couple points there. Exciting that you brought up Angelo and Build. Very deeply involved in that. I was just at their event here at Consensus in Austin, Texas on Tuesday. Great outpouring of people engaged in that. And I think it brings up one of the biggest points, which is build. And one thing that I would like to start out with is speaking a little bit to why we want network states. Why has network states even come up as a topic or something that we pursue? And I think generally the idea is we want to make a better world, right? This is what we're here for. Most of the people that are building towards a better world. And so I often have the question, well, what is the path towards that ultimate result? And a lot of times we work very hard to build solutions for problems that may not actually resolve the solution. So I bring this up because when we were in the Amsterdam conference, I had a conversation with Patry from Prospera and other projects very involved in that. And I said, well, why are we pursuing sovereignty? Why is sovereignty our goal? And is the goal sovereignty, or is the goal to make the world better, right? Perhaps we accomplish this goal of making the world better by making better people or better systems or these other things. So this is, I'll throw out the first controversial one here, since Jim didn't get to throw anything too controversial out yet, but maybe sovereignty is not the thing that we have to go after as a primary focus. And I bring that up because when we talk about how we interact with nation states, sovereignty exists in a realm of anarchy. And it exists in a realm that you cannot really challenge it without receiving the full force back at you to protect that sovereignty. And so I tend to be very cautious about the idea of trying to establish sovereignty in sovereign lands, because that is absolutely guaranteed to be the most resistant path to pursue. So as we talk about relationships and collaboration and how we move forward, I think it becomes important to think about, what is our goal and what is the message we're putting out there? Do we want to take on the world, take on every country, take a piece of land? I don't want to have to fund or manage the military that would be required to do that. So that's a first consideration I have in a lot of what we're addressing here. I have two main areas that I'm particularly interested in when we talk about collaboration and geopolitics and these things. There's let's say three areas. The three areas are, we have to have collaboration, communication, inter-network state. We'll use the term network state for now, since these are kind of the projects we're talking about. So we have the inter-collaboration among our different projects, groups, brands, businesses, and communities. We have the interaction with established legacy nation states and governments, these entities, that sovereignties that we have to deal with. And then we also have the integration and collaboration with our audience, which are humans, the members, the users, the people, the citizens that are actually the targeted beneficiaries of our efforts, right? So there's three different areas that we have to focus on, and they each have very different types of conversations. I've spoken a little bit about the geopolitical space, where if you try to attack sovereignty, you will get the full blowback of defense of sovereignty, which is rightfully there. And I'd like to speak a little bit now about the inter-network state, inter-project type of collaboration. I think it's an important point there Jim made about all these different projects kind of doing different things, and focusing on building is essential, because you're absolutely right. There are no network states. And network state is really more of a concept that challenges the nation state. But really what all these projects are doing are developing better solutions for humans, right, at every level. So the more that all of these projects focus on collaborating to create their own solutions, the better solutions we create. And I think this is the most powerful point of the network state philosophy is, we create the parallel solutions, the parallel systems, the parallel societies that are a destination for people to migrate to. And through that effort, either we create a new system that people are engaged in, or more likely, in my observation, we actually affect the existing ones, right? And so we then begin to merge and blend, and society evolves and matures to the next level there. I've had some experience at industry level representation in politics, and United States level, working with state government, and it is very ugly. It's ugly, dirty, sneaky, expensive, all the things we hate about it. But there has to be an integration there. And I really also like the conversation or the message that Jim had, where you have to approach or that Vahram, you were saying, with maturity, right? And that we have to demonstrate maturity, because there are people within the legacy systems who do want to adopt this and want to participate with it, and we have to meet this on the same field. So we have to remove some of the antagonism to some degree. I think there's still force and strength that we can show in collaboration, but that needs to be a little bit more focused in a geopolitical based system, so that it's recognizable by those who are in power who may want to support it. So that's a very important point there. Going back again to the inter-network state collaboration and communication, there are definitely some groups where the hot topic is deciding whether or not a project is a network state or not. And so there's an interesting blend of what is natural, which is, I think, people emerging saying, you are not us. And the tribal effect still applies between what we're working on. So there are those who say, well, you are not going after sovereignty, you are not blockchain based, you are not sufficiently decentralized, you are not this, you are not this. And so there's very much a lot of exclusivity about who works with who. And I think the more general we can become in our efforts, we create an umbrella that allows everyone to participate under this umbrella and move forward. I think the term network state will have to evolve, change to another terminology here that's a little bit less polarizing. And I think one thing I've spoken with quite a few other folks about is Build is an excellent example of a couple protocols out there, a couple communities that are very neutral in a lot of ways, and their focus is to build. And I'm very involved with them, and I think this is one of the key parties that are playing here. But we also need to have an entity, an organization that, again, to the previous point, is more recognizable by geopolitical parties, companies. Something that is formed along the lines of UN for network states, right? The UN, United Network States, or something that is a very neutral organization, but framed in a traditional way so that other organizations easily recognize it and engage with it. So I think that will be a thing that will help. The last one that I think is really important here is the audience, the third space to focus on. And this is not just collaboration among projects and attempted network states on the professional side, but a very strong emphasis on how do we actually appeal to broad audiences of users. And this goes down to many areas of UX, UI, governance, culture, national recognition, economies. There's a lot of places we have to focus for this, but the strength will come both from the collaboration of projects working together, but also the ability to streamline and funnel the audiences that we're all serving and bring together the audiences. And when I speak of that, I speak of, for instance, here in Austin, Texas, where I'm visiting right now for the event, you have very strong tech ecosystem, tech crypto ecosystem. Oh, you have tech system, ecosystem, or economic system, you have intentional communities, you have spiritual communities, you have agriculture, regenerative agriculture. You have all these different audiences and cultural subgroups that all want the same solution ultimately that we are building for them. And we need to figure out how to somehow funnel them together. We can still have branding that appeals and these things that kind of focus on different audiences. But I think that uniting the audience, the humans that we're serving, which is really the entire global population, and appealing to those and working with each other to make sure we are reaching the masses and covering everybody's interests, that is one of the powerful tools that will keep us moving forward. So those are kind of the three areas that I really am thinking about when I consider collaboration. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak here and see where the conversation goes.
Thanks very much, Joshua, for insightful intervention and proposals, actually. Shiwen, your turn. Shiwen, by the way, you have a presentation you can present. I mean, you can
Sure, thanks.
do it by yourself. Yeah, welcome.
So let me just find and share the screen. So thank you, everyone, for your time. Thank you, Vahram, for inviting me here. So I think when it comes down to it, I will just very briefly touch on my credentials. I work with Patrick from Pronomos Capital from 2019 to 2022. I was the fund rep for them in Singapore. Try to connect them to some of the agencies here, like the central bank, one of the departments here, as well as an infrastructure investment organization, Infrastructure Asia. In 2022, I left Pronomos because what happened was Patrick became an investor in a startup that I was doing. So there was a conflict of interest there. And so to prevent that, being the fund rep and also him being my investor, I stepped back from Pronomos at that point in time. Now, my experience with this more towards charter cities, but I believe it applies to the network state, is that there's a lack of investment grade assets. It's really about building a sustainable business. Whenever you talk charter cities, in a sense, you're talking about a node of a network state. And when you deal with sovereignty, you always bring a political risk to the project. So it's about making it, network state is exciting, but when you are speaking to investors and getting the money from them, you got to make it as boring as humanly possible, because what they want is the return on their investment. That's what they care about. So how I speak might be very, I'm not anti-network state, but some of the way I speak about it can be, I think, don't take it the wrong way. I'm just being very practical in approach of how to possibly build it. Now, going over some of the points that have been shared, network state is a number of things, but basically it starts with an online community. You already have that. It starts, again, the second foundation you're dealing with is decentralized governance. And that's enabled through the on-chain consensus using the blockchain tech. Third, of course, is the national consciousness, that tribal sensation, that sense of community. You got to have everyone feeling the same way and saying, oh, we're all X and not Y. And I think the fourth is really quite critical. You need a physical presence, not necessarily a territory, but you need to have real assets that underlie the network state and how to move forward with it. And to be able to finance it at the end of the day, you want to have assets where you can, the government or the network state, so to speak, can using those assets, raise debt, raise funds, whether it's some skyscraper in Dubai or a piece of farmland in Romania, whatever it may be. I think there's of course more qualities to the network states, but I'm not going to go into that because everyone here more or less knows what network states are. So it comes down to it, politics. And I think there's a lot that has been mentioned. And for me, I am not an expert per se, but I don't know what I don't know. So please feel free to add later on at the Q&A. But I'm just going to focus on Europe and Asia, or Eurasia, as we're calling it these days, because what's happened is with the war in Ukraine and the competition between the US and China, it is going to be a very interesting scenario. So my perspective is a bit unique because I'm based in Singapore, so it's past 12, it's past midnight here, but I'm based in Singapore. My mother is Indian, my father is Chinese. I'm what is called locally in Singapore a Chindian. There's an actual Wikipedia article about us, so you can look it up after this. But that entails me having some interesting perspectives on the developments here. So if you're going to build a network state, you're going to be dealing with politics. And you're going to be dealing with basically it's actually 5 consequential relationships. So I'll just focus on 3 in Europe and Asia. The first will be China and Russia. They form one axis. The second will be EU and Russia, which is not a particularly productive relationship at the moment. And then you also have India and China. Then of course you have another trilateral, the Russia-India-China relationship, which is makes everything a lot more complex. And then you have the US-China relationship, which also adds to the dynamics of what network states have to factor in if you're going to build it and develop it reliably across Eurasia. So essentially, we are going to have to factor this in, given that really the growth driver for Asia and I think for the world for the next 10 to 20 years is really India. So that the India-EU and the India-China relationship, as well as the India-Russian relationship, will become very crucial as the network states sector matures. Now, what a network state needs really to be viable, to be practical, is you need to be able to have a flow of funds, you need to be able to have a flow of communication information, which I'll get into later. But making a practical network state, I've been stepping back, looking at what works for charter cities. Charter cities, you have actual property, you have actual assets, physical assets to develop. With a network state, because it's more virtual, you need to have fund flows going here and there. So the whole number of things. If you're using SWIFT, what happens is you're very vulnerable to the US and the West till they decide to come after you. And if you're a network state, you want to be able to do business with anybody because you're a neutral state. You just you have a commercial inclination at the end of the day. So you have a bunch of choices. You have the CIPS/Union Pay, which is what China is using at the moment, as well as Russia, and that has a global reach. You have the SCPA, you have blockchain, and then you have other alternatives such as, for example, the MIR system in Russia, or the RuPay, which is being used in India. So that the key here is that we want to have financial autonomy, and of course, blockchain is the way to go. But you also need to be able to cater to the mainstream as well, to bring them into the network state. So we need to look at also, certainly the CIPS is the largest alternative to SWIFT at the moment, and that will also there's also need to integrate that into making a viable network state. But other part is enforcing the contracts. Now, at the end of the day, it's going to be a private court, but you need to have someone to enforce the contracts. You need a template to work from. So really, the judicial system, I think, is very often overlooked because you want to be able to bring in people, bring in businesses, bring people in the businesses, and then have the legal code and have the contracts that are enforceable. Otherwise, the network state is just not going to work. As far if you want sovereignty, you also need to have the capacity to enforce the contracts signed between the businesses, within society, between people as part of that. So rule of law, transparency, and that needs to be linked to probably an outside source at the beginning to different countries, for example, Singapore, Switzerland, or any country that basically has a reputation for transparent legal transparency and judicial independence. So of course, there are partnership opportunities. I think Switzerland is wonderful, but the neutrality has been spoiled a bit because of the sanctions that it is now pursuing against Russia. Singapore is mostly neutral, and it's one of the few places where the Chinese and Americans can come and sit down. For instance, next week, the defense ministers of China and India, of China and the US are coming to have a conference in Singapore because that's the only place they can actually sit down where it's neutral enough that Singapore is a facilitator to allow it to have this, it's neutral enough to have this very transparent discussion between the two. So we need to, for network state to be viable, you need to associate yourself with a strong, with the country that has a brand strength as neutral. For instance, a network state partnering with Israel. Israel has the discussion of Israel arouses a lot of very strong emotions. When people think of Israel, people think of many things. So, that also blocks you from building out the network state in the Middle East, because then people, or Muslim countries, because people will have a certain perception of that organization. So, you have to choose, UAE and Qatar work. Certainly, Liechtenstein or Monaco, that also might offer opportunities. But the idea here is that I use these two countries as examples because what happens is they're both neutral and they both have strong international reputations in terms of their judicial and legal links, as well as the economic development. So when it comes to fostering the collaborations, we do need to work and adapt successful models that work for the network state. And we need to learn from the established sovereign states, Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, Switzerland. These are all models you can learn from. All very liberal in terms of their market conditions and all allowing a lot of regulatory innovation. But to also make it sustainable, the opportunities, for instance, education. If you bring in an ed tech angle, an education angle, that gives you the opportunity to foster diplomacy, foster cultural diplomacy, because when you have young people mixing together, learning together, that allows you to learn and form a tribal identity, which is the foundation of building your network state. And then when you want to make it sustainable, not just in terms of the business model, but in terms of the environmental aspect, then it offers a platform working from education to move on to projects that involve decarbonization, nature conservation, what have you, ESG, so to speak. Now, here is when we come to connected countries, because right now the world we're in is splitting apart. First it was globalization the world is not splitting apart. Really.
Shiwen, sorry for interrupting. Please sum up, because we are, sum up, please. This is the last slide, right? I think.
I'll share the PowerPoint. Okay, sum up connected countries, basically Indonesia, Vietnam, Mexico, Poland, Morocco. These are the places where world splitting apart. You need to look at them, you need to work with them, because they offer the opportunities. Otherwise, it's the trade flows have broken up, and you need to position yourself strategically. These are the places you want to go to work against the fragmentation we're seeing in the world now. And I think I've already gone over this a bit earlier, so I'm just going to skip this slide. But it's about making it practical. The best model I can think of is using Line. The Line app is a messaging app that incorporates both payment services, payment, banking, as well as cybersecurity these days, media. So it is something that I think is where you want to start from. You want to be able to have a platform that enables information flows and fund flows. So that is why I think the Line app from Japan and offers a solution that can enable the network state. You get the infrastructure, the basic communication infrastructure, you get the basic payments infrastructure, and then you have an interesting asset that you can bring to investors, and that will start to enable your network state. So I hope that that's the wrap up more or less. Okay, I'm done. If anyone wants a slide, just ask me and I'll send it over.
Thanks a lot, Shiwen. Thanks a lot for a wonderful presentation and very insightful comments. We will have a press release and the recording, and so maybe in a week or so it will be ready. It will be circulated. So everyone who is out, who couldn't take part in today's discussion, can also have an access to what we discussed. This is one of the goals of promoting this network state and nation state relationship, like network state and new countries concept to broader audience. Yeah, we have, let's say that we have 9 minutes because it's very late at Shiwen's and Jim's places. That's why we have just 9 minutes for Q&A session. So that we don't keep them much. So if anyone has question, please raise your hand or unmute and speak. Ilya has a question. Ilya, please.
Yes, hello everyone. It was
Hello.
very nice talks and presentations, and like so impressed that so many people are in this topic and have a big knowledges in this field. So my question will be like this. What do you think, and I want each speaker to tell something about this, is it possible that the future network state or the future community of the people can buy a land from the current states and establish a new place on earth for the people? So will the current states will sell this or not? Or what will be in the future? So this is my question. Thank you.
Who wants to take this one?
Who is the one who to answer? Joshua, Shiwen, Jim.
I have a perspective, and it actually goes off to a question I had also for Shiwen. I think this relates to what I was saying earlier about how we are approaching creating the solutions. If we are presenting ourselves as challenging sovereignty and trying to seize sovereignty from the rest of existing sovereign states, they will not sell it. We're going to have problems. So this kind of starts to go into the question I had for Shiwen, and what a point I think was really important for him, which was to have tangible land-based projects. And my approach here since the beginning, 3 years now, has been a little bit more subversive. So I think the project is we just acquire land for our communities. And if we are just acquiring land for communities, and over time those communities grow and the land holdings grow, then you start to control the space. If you go for a certain level of autonomy, that's not as threatening. You know, maybe we just want some trade economics that we can control. So I think the difference of whether we can acquire land from established legacy nation states is a question of how we're going about it. If we just present good investment opportunities for communities where there is some profitability in return and we can attract people to follow that ideology, then we will gain control, status, gain ground, right? If we do it very aggressively and say, hey, we are trying to buy land to take away from the nation states, it's not happening.
Yeah, just to build on that, very interesting question. So first of all, you technically for a lot of in a lot of countries, you can still buy. I think you can buy property. You don't need to be a network society going in to be able to buy a property, a country club or something. I mean, it also varies between nation states and nation states. Some nation states say that you cannot be a foreigner and buy land. Others, I think, like in the U.S., in North America, you could technically buy for most people buy a piece of property. So that is, that restriction may or may not be there. And then just to build on what Joshua was saying, yeah, you want to be, arguably, I agree with what Joshua was saying, you want to be building first, build, and start somewhere, build somewhere, show a proof of concept, and then demonstrate some level of economic cooperation where there's incentive, right? There are 190 states in the world. Probably at least one or two of them are going to see the potential economic benefits of this group of people coming in and building something positive for their society, for their people. And there's a win-win build collaboration that can be established somewhere over there.
I'd say
Shiwen, please, you too, please. Yeah.
I be as boring as possible. I think don't discuss even sovereignty, because when you mention political risk, investors won't want to fund it. What you start is you're either a messaging service or you're a financial service. And by the way, you're just buying up a chain of co-living studios across different cities. You have a co-living studio, a bunch of apartments where these network state people can live together and form a community and build an identity in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, in Singapore, in Bangkok. That's where you have your property, and that's where you can generate returns for your investors. And then maybe 5 to 7 years after that, then you start thinking maybe, okay, you buy a plot of land to build a country club, which could actually be a private estate that forms part of the network state. And then that's when you start having this conversation about sovereignty, when you can build yourself a business park. You start slowly, and you have a 10-year plan in place, and you make it as boring as possible. But you don't call yourself a network state. You call yourself a network state once you got a critical mass, and once, say, a lot of countries now have sovereign wealth funds. Like Singapore has Temasek, they have 400 billion US lying around. Get them as an investor. Get the local companies, like the local government, to be part of your investment team. Let them have a stake in the network state. Then they'll be very interested to help you out. Right? That's the way to go about it.
Thanks a lot, Shiwen. Thanks a lot. I'm also gonna make one comment on this. I mean, when we talk about buying land and challenging sovereignty or sovereignty and not challenging sovereignty or whatever, I have always been thinking on this from also the art perspective and ideological perspective. Like, I mean, you become so strong on ideological level that people working in the nation states become yours in not I mean individual level. Like, I mean, they become your ideological followers, so they will definitely give you land, not only sell, but they will also give it to you. So this is also the way like religions some 2000 years ago worked also this way. But in general, this is a very difficult topic to build on, because it's very long and we are running out of time. Joshua, you won't comment, but we also have one question from the audience about the democratic network states. Please 1-2 minutes maximum and we finish. Do you think that we can have democratic network states, and how we can build them?
Yes, it's two parts. Democracy is an important element of all of this, and there are excellent tools emerging, right, for governance, for community governance, different models and technologies to do that. And I'm cautious about the last part of that question, which says implement network state concept from the top to bottom. That is actually how authoritarian hierarchy works. So the essence, and this ties back to my comment with land, is we need to build, and we need to build the tools that empower humans. So if we build the tools that naturally empower humans, then we can actually empower the humans to achieve what they want to achieve, whether that's through governance or land purchases. Make it boring. We're just going to buy fractional land. We have shared ownership. Then we have some little autonomy governance there. That grows from the grassroots up. It's less challenging, and that's what changes the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just add on to this. I think, democracy bit, I only care what my shareholders say. Every company has a corporate constitution. You care what your shareholders say, you care what your users say. But I wouldn't mention democracy like in the first 5 to 7 years when you're establishing things. Talk about democracy later.
Yeah, absolutely. yeah, just build. I think, you know, to Shiwen's point, Joshua's point, just build something that solves fundamental problems, that attracts people to come here and be a part of the community, and start from there.
Thanks a lot. And from my point of view, because Shiwen and Jim from the East, I mean from Asia, and Joshua from the West, and I am Armenian from between, I can say that yeah, democracy is important, and all these concepts are very important. But one of the most important things is traction, definitely, and also political traction. I mean, when you have traction, people will start working with you, will start. By the way, all nation states, by the way, not all, most of them were also born this way. The team, the elite started working, people started, I mean, dealing with them seriously, and that's how things are done. I mean, all over the world. I mean, it worked that way. But since we are running out of time, Fabio, you have a question, but let's, I mean, leave it for the next session. We are gonna definitely have next, webinars as well. It's very late. It's truly very late in Singapore and Philippines. In the Philippines, I don't want, I mean, to keep Shiwen and Jim this much late. This discussion is very, very important and insightful, and it should continue. And yeah, I mean, we'll have a recording and a press release maybe in a week, and it will be shared with all of you, and it will be also shared with the database that I mentioned. I mean, we have 2,000 plus database of governments, nation-state governments, and decision makers, parliament members, and influencers. And stay tuned, because we are going to have those discussions to be continued. And see you soon, and hope we will build a robust establishment, whether we call it a network state or a new establishment or a futuristic something that is coming to the present. The most important thing is that the goal is benign, and the goal is to have a more just and better world, definitely, because all these things are a means and not an end. The end is a harmonious world where people definitely exercise their virtues and feel in the right place they live in. Thanks a lot, and yeah, very insightful, very interesting. Let's continue this. See you. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mano.